This is the coolest thing I've seen in the terminal in a long time. This is a text-based web browser, and it is rendering my YouTube channel page here with these block character graphics. This is the real web page too, so it's fully interactable. Like, I can press play on the video and it actually plays the video. It's kind of really cool that this is even possible to do, but there is a real use case for this browser and for other text-based browsers. But before I get to talking about that, I have to talk about when you would not want to use a browser. Because there is a time where it is far simpler and far more efficient to access the web directly from the command line as opposed to using a browser to do it. So to give you an example here, something I do really frequently is looking up definitions of words, like if I'm either unsure of the word or I want to see like the context or something like that, right? This is super easy to do and there's a number of ways you can do it. So for example, I could just curl dict.org/d and then put a colon and then just give a word there, like type it out, there's my definition. It's actually super fast. Now, you might say, okay, I have a web browser open already, I can look this up faster in my browser. Alright, well, we can do it a little bit faster than this, okay? I have a little shell script, it's called define, and I give it a word, and instantly I've got my desktop notification with my part of speech and my definition. But we can get it even faster. I can actually just select a word with my cursor and I can press a shortcut key and then I've got my definitions. Actually, one definition per part of speech is how I want this formatted. I could look up any word and I can actually do this in any application too, since this is a global shortcut, so it's not just bound to the terminal. But this is a really simple script. It's literally like 5 lines, I believe, and it's using this free API called the Dictionary API. It's using JQ to format the output, and I could get any formatting I wanted. Like if I wanted, 5 different definitions, I could do that. Personally, I like it in, a little desktop notification, but, if you want to take this and put it just as direct terminal output, you could do that. Point being, though, this is a lot faster than looking up words in a web browser. And there's a lot of other tasks as well that are going to be faster if you do them directly in your terminal as opposed to using a web browser for them. So a service that I like to mention, I've mentioned this so many times because it's really cool to be honest, is WTTR.in. And this is something you can just curl it directly. It will give you a 3-day weather forecast. It goes based off of your IP address, so it'll get your location there, or you can give it a specified location and it'll give you the weather for that location. And you can get all sorts of formatting options, so you can do stuff like display it in your status bar if you want to. But I will actually say I'm using something else for my status bar now. I'm using something potentially a little bit cooler, and you'll see why as soon as I update it. This is why it is cooler. Once it updates, I will show you why it's cooler. Hold on, it's okay, it updated. There we go. That is why this is cooler. I will make a video on this once this script is done, but yeah, that is a real-time satellite image of the United States there. This is so cool that that's even possible to do. So yeah, I will make a future video on that, but anyways, back to WTTR.in. The same person who made WTTR.in made another service called cheat.sh, which actually has cheat sheets for everything from programming languages to shell commands, Linux, Unix commands, that sort of thing. This is really useful to just quickly get information on a topic, right? And what you can do, you just do, curl cheat.sh / whatever topic, right? Like bash, there we go. Why is this faster than using a web browser? Well, I instantly have the information I'm looking for, right? Like, say I was trying to figure out how do I do a case statement in bash. Well, I'd have to type that into a search engine and then I'd have to go to a web page, wait for that to load, try to find the information on the web page. No, this is just instantly here. So this is a really good complement to something like just using your man pages and then use cheat.sh, or use, TLDR and then cheat.sh is there if you need it. You can also just see, if you want to, a list of every page available. If you just do :list, that's going to be a list of all pages. So this is just really useful to like be aware of its existence, right? But the same person who made these two things also has a compiled list of other console services, and this is really useful because if you want to move stuff more into your terminal so you can access the web directly from that, as opposed to, using web pages that unfortunately these days a lot of web pages are poorly coded, they're really slow, and that's not even getting into stuff like privacy and tracking, all that sort of stuff. This is just so convenient and so easy. So this is a really cool list. I'm going to link everything I talk about in the description if you want to go see it. But anyways, so I promised I would talk about text-based web browsers. I actually have a fair amount to say on these. So first of all, a text-based web browser that I actually use at times is W3M. So what I use W3M for is really its original purpose. So its original purpose is just being a pager for web pages, right? Which I guess is kind of a redundant statement. But yeah, it is a pager, meaning if you want to just be reading your web pages in peace, that is what something like W3M is for. Now, W3M does actually offer image support as well. Personally, I don't have that configured since it's something, I'm less interested in image support. But say I just want to read a web page in peace. I don't know, I'll pull up like, I don't know, archlinux.org, why not? This doesn't even make sense since Arch Linux does have an RSS feed, but like this is a good complement. If you're someone who does like RSS feeds a lot like me, you might want to just read web pages in peace, ones that maybe don't have an RSS feed. You just want to see your web page. You don't want to see all of the background stuff, all of the images, all of the extra junk on the page. You just want to read your page in peace, right? So this is the sort of thing that personally I find really useful. Now, of course, this isn't going to work with every single website. A lot of websites are just like too far gone, honestly, to display it in the terminal like this. But for the ones that you can, like, it's really nice to just have that directly there. It's integrated with your color scheme and everything. Like, it's just a nice thing to have, But anyways, back to this original browser that I started by showing. So this is called Browsh, and it does have a very real purpose for existing. And I think the developer explains it really, really well. The developer also decided that they needed to rickroll you in the GitHub page, so enjoy that. But anyways, they have a really, explanatory statement here of why Browsh should exist. So not all of the world has good internet. If you have a slower internet connection tethered from a phone, then you might want to SSH into a server so that you can then access the internet, access other stuff from that server, use that server's bandwidth instead of yours, right? That makes sense. You might want to use something like Lynx or eLinks or W3M as a browser, but say you want to actually see web pages as they actually look. Like, this is clearly github.com. Sure, the text-based rendering does some stuff to it, but like, you can see this is what the web page looks like. If I go back to YouTube here, like, this is what YouTube looks like when you actually go to the page. And that is the purpose of a browser like this. You can actually see web pages as they are without necessarily using your internet connection. You can SSH into a server, use that internet connection, display the page on the server, send it back to you, which of course is not going to use the level of bandwidth that trying to access, a web page from your internet connection would use. So this makes total sense to have something like this that exists, right? Now, there's actually an alternative to Browsh that is Chromium-based as well. This is Carbonyl. It claims it's actually faster than Browsh by a bit. Personally, I haven't found that much of a speed difference. I mean, to be fair, I haven't stress tested it or anything like that. And of course, both of these are going to have their drawbacks. Like, of course, not every web page is going to behave well with a browser like this, but that's not really the point. The point is displaying a web page with the formatting as is so you can actually see what it looks like, right? And I should mention, if I didn't already, I'm not sure if I did, these are actually using Firefox versus Chromium as backends. They're using headless versions, and then they're rendering the text directly in the terminal. That is how these work. So you're going to have your backend browser, it then renders the text so that you can see the formatting as such, right? So I think it is really cool that these even exist in the first place. And the use case, as much as it doesn't necessarily apply to me, I think it's so cool to be able to like pull up my channel from the terminal. Like, that's genuinely just sick that that's a thing that you can do. But anyways, I hope you learned something new from this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time. Peace!